It's time for Reason.
That's the priorities our government has set. We just talked about the state budget and where the money's going and how much taxes they want to increase on us. Now we're looking at the federal level and looking at a federal budget reform on what we can do to get our budget under control. And instead of worrying about where the money's going and what our tax rate's going to look like and what our spending's going to look like, we're too concerned with giving amnesty to illegal aliens. Notice the priority of the progressives.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. Can you believe that it's Thursday already? I don't know where yesterday went. I really don't. We had way too much fun on the show. It's kind of like a big party. This show's kind of like a big party that you go to late at night. And you have too many adult beverages, and you come back and you don't quite remember everything that quite happened at the party because you had just had way too much fun. Remember those days back in the old college days, back in the old days, or back in maybe it was yesterday for some, maybe it was a few years back for others, and you just had way too much fun. It was like a blur, and it was the very first. It was the very first party where you got to kiss the girl that you've liked for a really long time. It was the time where you first got to enjoy the adult beverages as a young adult. It was the first time. That's what it felt like yesterday on the show. It was a blur. It went by way too fast, and we had way too much fun, which is a good thing. It's a good thing because that means that hopefully the show was relatively entertaining for you, the listener, and it definitely was for me as the host because we just enjoyed way too much of it. So yesterday was a blur. I cannot believe that today's Thursday already, that we are already on the pre-Friday celebration, which means we get to have a little bit of fun today as well. Welcome into it. Good morning, however you may be starting your day or ending your day. Appreciate you tuning in with us. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, hailing from Wichita, Kansas, here on the Big Talker KQAM, broadcasting all across the Mid-American Network, along with KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard and good morning to you. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We have a lot to get to today. Now that the State of the Union is done and over, we can start addressing some of the state issues again, as we like to do, and a lot more coming out of the legislative session. Yesterday was the official final day for Governor Sam Brownback, and now we have officially Governor Jeff Coyler. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show as well. Get your thoughts on what you want to see from a Governor Jeff Coyler. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler, now Governor Jeff Coyler for the state of Kansas, and what it may look like in the state. How much it may or may not change. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. I do want to, though, first thing here as we start off, recap a little bit of yesterday with the State of the Union and the response to the State of the Union, is that was, of course, the big talking point for everybody yesterday. Today, everybody's talking about the release of the FBI memo that everybody's panicky about and that the president and the Republicans are all excited about because it really shows how the FBI has been surveilling Donald Trump during the campaign, the technology that we have, and the illegal, potentially illegal, alleged illegal surveillance that we may be having in the country. So it'll be a very interesting memo, and we may talk about that a little bit later if we have time today as well. But we called it. And I have to say, first off, I heard this yesterday and I burst out laughing. I wish that I would have thought of this myself on the air yesterday. And I cannot take credit for this in any way, shape, or form. But I found it hysterical. There was a couple other talk show hosts that made this comment yesterday that I found quite entertaining with Joe, what was his name? Joe Kennedy III, as he did the response to the State of the Union on Tuesday night, where they made the comment of, wow, why would they put a Kennedy in front of a wrecked car? Talking about the Me Too movement. And I found that probably one of the most hysterical things that I've heard in a really, really long time. If you don't know the reference there, talking about Ted Kennedy with running over the gal and then, dumping the car and the girl into the lake and whatever and running off and doing his thing and, killing somebody and then not reporting it until a couple of days later. And it's ironic how I guess I didn't put the two and two together. Because I didn't think it was broken. I just thought it was a muscle car behind him that had the hood up, so I guess I really didn't pay attention that big. But it was the wrecked car behind him. Why would you put Ted Kennedy in front of a wrecked car talking about the Me Too movement and sexual harassment? I found quite hysterical. So that was first the brilliant part that I heard throughout the rest of the day yesterday. That was about the only other thing that anybody else, in my humble opinion, contributed to the discussion of the State of the Union that was anything above and beyond what we covered yesterday on the show. That was quite brilliant, if I must say so. And with all the phone calls that we had and the great contributions that we had, it was fantastic. But we did call something yesterday, and that was the fact that the Democrats are now looking at Joe Kennedy III to be the next face and voice of the Democratic Party, which is hysterical by itself. Again, can the Democrats pick anybody to represent the party, to be the face of the party? Look, you always have your branding. And this is what I always tell you. Remember, there's two things in politics to make you successful: lots of money and a good PR team. And that goes for not just individuals, but for the party as well. The party has to have lots of money and a good PR team. And you have to have branding. If you know anything about advertising, if you know anything about marketing, it's all about the branding. We work at radio stations. Right now, I'm broadcasting on 4 different radio stations and a TV network. We're on media. And the way that we actually make money and that I can actually get a paycheck to do this every single day is that we have advertisers want to advertise on our networks, on our stations, because people are listening, and the advertiser knows that if you're listening as the listener and then you hear their commercial, that you're going to go buy their product. That's how it works. And in order for the listener to be enticed and say, oh, hey, I like that product, I'm going to go get it, you have to have the proper branding. I may not have gone to college for marketing and public relations, but I've been in media long enough to understand this, and I've been, by the way, on the sales side and on the operational side, so I know not only how to talk to clients and businesses on how to get them to advertise their business properly, but then I also be able to get the feeling of it when I create commercials that you hear every day on the radio. That's what we do for a living. Outside of talking politics, which is my bread and butter, what I like to do the most, but I enjoy the operational side and actually doing branding and marketing beyond that. You have to have branding. You have to have a message, or you have to have a tone, or you have to have a feeling or an emotion that people are drawn to want to go and buy your product. It's the same for a political party. It's the same for a political candidate. You have to have that proper branding. You have to make the constituent feel warm and cozy and nice inside to want to support you. And the Democrats right now don't have that. The Democrats, that's their biggest flaw right now, because they don't know what their identity is. If you're a business without a mission statement, for example, let's put it this way. If you're a business and you're just doing your thing and you're going about, but you don't have a mission statement, you don't know exactly what you want to provide. You don't know exactly what your priority is going to be. Is it going to be the product? Is it going to be the price? Or is it going to be the customer service? I was taught this when I was actually going through the sales side and marketing for radio, was that you had those 3 tiers. You really had the pyramid between price, product, and customer service. And you'll always be able to have 2 out of the 3. This is what I was taught. Maybe this may not be true for you, but this is what I was always taught, that you can always have 2 out of the 3 when you're talking about marketing in a pyramid. You can have a good price and customer service, but if you have those cheap prices with the happy customer service, then you may not have the best product that's on the market. If you have the best product and you have good customer service, then you may not have the cheapest price. You can always have 2 out of the 3. And right now, the Democrats don't have any, because they don't have an identity. They don't have a mission statement. They don't know what they're doing. They're just kind of floating around. They go with the breeze, and whatever's popular of the day, that's what they supposedly stand for. And they try and fight Donald Trump, and that really is their most identity that they have right now. But they've tried to play identity politics too much to where now they're trying to support 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different groupthink mentalities that don't even like each other. And how are they all supposed to be under the same umbrella when they don't like each other? Right now, they're fighting for an identity. And while they criticize the Republicans for being a bunch of racists and a bunch of bigots and a bunch of jerks and a bunch of... Remember, yesterday I got called a dorky-looking jerk yesterday. So that's going to be my new identity, apparently. I'm going to be that dorky-looking jerk. Okay. Try and compete with me on any type of intelligence level. I want to debate you. I want to hear your thoughts. Then I may not be... I guess I could be a dork in that sense. I am a dork in that sense. I love debating. Call me up and argue with me, please. But the Democrats have to have an identity. And right now they don't have it. Right now what they do have is they have Hillary Clinton and they have Bernie Sanders. 2 extremely old white individuals while they're trying to pass the blame off of racism, bigotry, and the old white crowd to the Republicans. When, if you remember the last Republican election that we had, the primaries, we had numerous different individuals. We had an African-American, we had a woman, we had 2 Hispanics, we had a couple white guys, we had the entire plethora, smorgasbord, if that's what you want to call it, available as potential candidates for the presidency. Under the Republican umbrella. What did they have over there? They had Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. It doesn't make any sense. So now they're trying to find their new identity, the new fresh face. The Democrats for the longest time have been trying to find the young face because they need to look young. They need to appeal to the young generation. They need to appeal to the millennials. They need to appeal to the young crowd to get the new generation rallied and energized for the young Democrats. So what do? They go back to a same old name that everybody's heard before with a lineage of politicians and people in office and power called the Kennedys. So now we have Joseph Kennedy III that's going to be the new face. And according to the Kansas City Star, people loved his speech being Joseph Kennedy III. He slammed House Speaker Paul Ryan before challenging his fellow Catholics to refer to the bill, meaning Obamacare, as an act of mercy, which is why he encouraged national Obamacare and national socialized medicine. 3 of the Kennedy's Capitol Hill speeches have become viral hits on Facebook, drawing millions of views. I have to imagine it would give them great pride to see a new generation of Kennedys like Joe carving out new pride paths in public service, according to Obama just a little while ago. Kennedys reliving the good old days again in the same old party because they can't do anything new.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
The Mel Hamilton Ford difference.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Good Thursday morning. It's a pre-Friday celebration. Let's make it happen, baby. Let's have a fun one. You see the weekend at the end of the tunnel, the lights, it's there. You can glisten towards it. I will tell you that if the Democrats go back to another Kennedy for their identity, for the young, fresh face, they're going to continue to lose. And I say good luck to them. I mean, this is good news for the Republicans because the Republicans can go back and say, oh, look, you're worried about dynasties. You didn't like the dynasty of the Bushes, yet you continue with the dynasty of the Clintons, and then you go back to the Kennedys because you're scared of a fresh face. We've heard numerous commentary from different young Democrats across the country saying, hello, we're here. We'd like to actually represent the party and do something too because we have ideas, but they're not part of the inside clique. And as long as the Democrats continue to do the inside click thing, then they're going to continue to lose because the many members of the Democrat Party are going to go towards the Bernie Sanders socialized movement, which is ridiculous, but, you know, all the power to them. They have the right to do so. They're going to go towards that. And as long as they shun the Bernie Sanders-ites out, they're going to lose part of their party. And then once they go back to the good old, same old boys of, oh, the fresh face of a new Kennedy, then they're just going to continue to hurt themselves. So all the power to you, my friends. If that's what you want to do, then that's cool, I guess. Here's some big news coming out of the state legislature. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. This is according to the Topeka Capital Journal. And this is what we called for just a few days ago, isn't it? This is exactly what we called for. And it's even bipartisan. And I mean bipartisan as in like one of the more conservative individuals with one of the more Democrat individuals banding together to make this happen. John Carmichael from Democrat from Wichita, co-sponsoring the bill with Representative John Whitmer, one of the more conservatives. As you know, he's on the show all the time. And they often clash quite a bit. But now they're working on the bipartisan bill. Hopefully this bipartisan approach and an individually introduced bill with our names on it will be favorably received. And the bill, drum roll, the tougher penalties for hoax emergency phone calls and swatting. And this goes back to the issues that we've talked about before with law enforcement. And the Wichita Eagle reports that the bill introduced Tuesday would allow for murder prosecution if someone dies during a future swatting prank. This is after the Andrew Finch incident where he died after the prank swatting call from a kid, 25-year-old Tyler Barris. And yes, he should be an adult, but I call him a kid because he was swatting and did a prank call at a 25-year-old level, thinking that he's an adult and that it was really funny to be able to make a swatting prank call and to have someone killed. 25-year-old Tyler Barris of Los Angeles made the call. Court documents say it stemmed from a small wager that he had on Call of Duty's online video game tournament where they dared him to do so, and he ended up doing it, and Andrew Finch ended up dying. And now, under new law, if this goes through, now this is one of a more Democrat individuals with a more conservative individual banding together and saying, look, this responsibility doesn't solely fall on law enforcement. Should it some? Sure. But we should also look at the individuals making the false claims. Now, I know it is illegal to make false claims and false police reports by calling them in, but now the fact that we can pass laws and say, you know what, if you do that and someone dies, then you get held just as responsible for the death of that individual and persecute you for murder. And I totally, 110% support that. Absolutely. Go for it. And the fact that it has bipartisan support is a really, really good sign. So we called it just a few days ago or a week or so ago, saying that that's what needs to happen. We need to look at the individual actually making the phone call. We need to actually have a punishment for them that's severe enough to where they will never want to do that again. And now we finally have something. So I see that as positive steps happening finally in the state legislature. So something that you can be proud about on a Thursday morning. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How are you?
Well, this month is February, Black History Month. Channel 3 here in Wichita decided to create every Monday what they call hidden history for Black History Month. And I'm going to give you some hidden history.
Okay.
What had happened was there was a series of documentaries called Hidden Colors, created by Tariq Nasheed, and they stole the name from that individual's series of documentaries on Black history, and they decided to use it for their program called Hidden History. So that's another hidden history that they failed to mention when they called their program the name they called it.
Very interesting. I was not aware of that. Yes, it is Black History Month now, and I remember hearing of that documentary. I never saw it, but I do remember of it. So that's interesting. I did not know that.
But it's a series of them. It's been going on for several years, and they decided to steal the name. So in a way, they're kind of holding up the tradition of stealing from Black people and plagiarizing some of their work.
Very interesting. Hey, let me ask you real quick, Scott, because I kind of set this up perfectly for you, and I know that this is something that you're passionate about. When we've talked about the police enforcement and when we talk about the hoaxing and the swatting calls and this new legislation where it's bipartisan from both ends of the aisle, your thoughts on this new law saying that we can persecute a individual making false police claims and swatting reports and persecute them for murder if anyone ends up dying with that? We got about 20 seconds. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a reactionary type bill, but I have to keep in mind that telephones can't kill people. You're responsible for the gun in your holster.
Well, you can when you create the mentality that someone's out for blood and that they're going crazy by killing their family and holding them hostage, and then the police go with that mindset. So interesting, very interesting. Appreciate that, Scott. Bottom of the hour news coming up. When we come back, Brenda Landwehr, state representative, we talked to her a few days ago. We'll play that interview. When we come back, this is the Voice of Reason.
If Andy drives you nuts,
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
let him know. Call the show, 721-8255. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Thursday, trying to wake you up the best way that we know how to do so. And it is, by the way, better than even a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even a sip of an energy drink, which I personally enjoy. Not lately, though. I've actually been going on the health kick thing and haven't had an energy drink or a soda in weeks, and I'm kind of happy about that. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I have to say really quick, we're going to get to our interview. I have to say, I never thought I would be one of those guys, though. I never thought I would be like that. I've been one that's like, what do you, I can eat whatever I want. I can do whatever I want to. Yeah, I've been young and dumb and whatever. I could do that. Don't worry about it. I don't really care. It doesn't make any sense. Now I'm like, ooh, I should go in my health kick. Ugh. Drives me nuts. 316-721-8255. But then you feel better, and then you're like, okay, I guess I'll just continue to do it. A couple days ago, we sat down with State Representative Brenda Landwehr. She is a state representative here from the Wichita area, and she's been intrigued with a lot of the things happening with the education debate. One of them, as you know, we talked about a few days ago, was the investigation that kicked off at the state level for K-12 funding and the potential scandal of the individual that's been there for, 30, 40 years and has paid additional money to special districts outside of what the books have allotted and against the state law for the state of Kansas, breaking the law. And now we're looking at an investigation. We're looking at a potential K-12 audit, and it was a big deal. So we talked with her about that as she has been involved with that. We'll get her take on that here. This was State Representative Brenda Landwehr just on Tuesday. State Representative Brenda Landwehr is on the line with us to talk about all of this. Brenda, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Andy. I am doing pretty good for being in the city of Topeka and no sunshine.
No sunshine, and there's toxic fumes floating around everywhere. I feel very bad for you.
Well, yeah, that kind of happens up here on occasion. So
it reminds me of Washington, D.C., really. I mean, you go up there and you just breathe in the weird fumes, and it's just an odd place to be all around. Brenda, the big news, first off, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a while since we've chatted with you, as things are a little slow up there right now, but we sense a lot of big things brewing. Is that the case?
Well, I think that there is. I mean, we knew that when the Supremes made their decision to rule the formula we passed last year for K-12 unconstitutional, that really threw things into a tailspin for several reasons. And then we've got Brownback will resign tomorrow, and we will have a new governor. We're not real happy with the budget that he's left us with. So it's still trying to figure out, okay, do you do another tax increase? Do you cut a whole lot of budgets up there? And trying to figure out how we keep our schools open.
Well, that's going to be the tough part. I got to ask, once that State of the State address was made public, I was, as many conservatives were, very frustrated with that. We have been going in with the hype, saying that this was going to be the year that we can change the narrative, that we can draw the line in the sand, that we can start fighting against the Supreme Court. Maybe we can get a constitutional amendment. Maybe we'll change the formula. Maybe we can finally figure this out for the long term instead of just allowing a lawsuit year over year. And then Brownback makes that claim that now, all right, here's the budget. We're going to include the $600 million spread over the next 5 years and whatever else. Is this going to make the discussion more difficult to actually come to a resolution by the end of this?
Well, I think that it does for a lot of reasons. I think that, first of all, what's really sad is K-12 takes over 50% of the budget. So every dollar you send to Topeka, over 50 cents, goes to K-12.
Sure.
And that's just the state portion. And it is the least accountable budget to the state.
Sure.
So it's like once we send that money, it all comes back onto the local school board on how they spend it. So if they don't prioritize right and make sure that they're spending money that will actually improve academics in the classroom, then who suffers? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the children.
Oh, yeah. And now we're seeing, after all this argument, for 10 plus years, they've been saying that we've been cutting education funding, which is not the case. We've seen the numbers since really the early 1990s, and it's been increasing 1% to 2% every single year in every budget when we ever do spending increases. But they've been saying that we've decreased it. But now we're seeing this big investigation. First off, for many that may not know or understand what this investigation's about, what's happening with Dale Dennis, with the Commission for the Board of Education, with the illegal funds, talk about what all this is. What's going on up there?
Well, it was discovered actually kind of by accident with a couple of folks. Late last spring, one of our audit people noticed a discrepancy in the transportation spreadsheet. And as he got to looking at it, he was having difficulty balancing it. So a legislative post-audit was done into just that one piece of K-12, and it was discovered at that time that Mr. Dale Dennis, who's the Deputy Director of Department of Education, was allocating funds and transportation in opposition to what the law said. And his response to that was, well, a senator back in the 80s told me to do it this way.
So that was it. They just told you to do it that way, so that's the way you've been doing it since.
That's exactly what he says. And so the leadership in the House and the Senate, had asked for a forensic audit to be done to determine if, the misallocation or currently taxpayer dollars in violation of state law, and that the audit be made public, and then let's decide where we go from there. But unfortunately what happened is that a lot of people took it as a personal attack against Dale Dennis, and I don't believe that was the intent of the request.
Sure.
What's being reported is that as an attack is actually the emotions of the education community.
Sure.
And they are what driving the issue right now. And it's disappointing to see that the State Board of Education, took the emotional route instead of actually dealing with the facts before them. Because the question that's being raised by a lot of people around here is, okay, if there's a miscalculation just in the transportation, do we also have those same allocations happening somewhere else? And it is normal business practice when an irregularity is found in a business to remove the individual, not fire them, but suspend them from that area with pay,
sure,
and let an audit happen. And Dale Dennis has been with education for 40 years, Andy, and has never taken a vacation.
Wow, well, that's impressive.
And he's 80 years old. So the question is there no one else over there that can do Dale's job? And if that's the case, we have a big problem, because if something happens to Dale tomorrow, what happens to the education department over there?
Well, that's the big question. Now, and as you mentioned, Democrats have been coming out and supporting Dale Dennis and saying, well, there's nothing really to go on here. Just overlook it. Don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. According to the Topeka Capital Journal, here's what they had to say. Democrat legislators and education advocates rallied to defend Dennis, lauding his dedication to government service and arguing the controversial transportation allocations ought to be affirmed by amending state law. So just change the law so that way whatever he was doing that may have been shenanigans is no longer shenanigans, and therefore we don't have to worry about that. To my knowledge, Brenda, that may not be the best way to say, hey, we've been breaking state law and giving more money to places where it wasn't supposed to be allocated to.
Well, you're exactly right, and that's part of the problem. But legislators and folk educrats and some of our bureaucrats up here seem to think that if a law is broken, then don't punish anybody. Don't worry about that the law was violated. Let's just go in and change it so that we make what was illegal is legal today.
Sure.
And there's actually been a bill introduced in the House and the Senate to do exactly that. This whole thing raises a lot of questions, such as if the rule of law is not important to the Kansas State Board of Education and superintendents, then how can schools sue for what they consider to be unconstitutional?
Mm-hmm.
What if every agency was given the ability to interpret law instead of following the law?
Well, first off, we would have no reason for the Supreme Court anymore to interpret the laws from their end.
Well, not only that, we'd have no need for a legislature or a governor. We just let the agencies do what they feel like.
Just do whatever they want to. No, you're absolutely right. The fact that the Democrats and the progressives have been focusing on K-12 education for so long, so many years, they've encouraged the Supreme Court to always say it's unconstitutional. They've encouraged the Supreme Court to ask for more money, regardless of however much that may be, even though they're not allowed to say exactly how much. This is going against all their agenda because, as they've been saying, that they haven't gotten enough. We come to find out there's shenanigans going on inside where they're getting more than what we had allotted to them. And you're right. If we do an audit across the board for K through 12, what else are we going to find in there?
Well, I hope we don't find anything else, but at least we do the audit and find out, do we have the formula being operated under, according to law, so that as legislators, when we make a decision, we know that we are dealing with accurate numbers.
Mm-hmm. Is this going to affect at all the discussion of the K through 12 funding right now? Are they going to try and hold off on it? Is this going to be as the audit's happening, as we're trying to figure this out, we're just going to hold off on trying to create a new formula, find the new funding, and we're just going to wait maybe another session until this is all said and done?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of things at question because what the Supremes have come in and said with their decision is that if we don't meet a certain deadline, with a new funding that they can rule constitutional, then they're going to shut down our schools, which raises another question. When teachers in Kansas cannot strike when school starts and they don't have a contract, how in the world can judges come in here and shut down schools?
That's a good question.
And when you're talking about the education of children, you're saying, okay, we got 25% of our children in Kansas cannot read or do math at grade level. Now, our response is, let's take the entire education system away from those kids. Does that make sense, Andy? No, it does not make sense.
Yeah, I feel like way better to the fact that, yeah, exactly. It makes me feel way better to the fact that, oh, you can't read and write, so let's just take away the little option that you already had.
Right. That makes absolutely no sense at all. And, the other thing I think that the court didn't take into account is the Department of Education came in with some new programs that they're trying across the state. And they actually used some NASA terminology in this. The one pilot program deals with, I believe it's 7 or 8 schools that they call the Mercury program. And those schools are looking at restructuring to where you don't deal with just seat time. So if you have little Susie over here that is in 6th grade, but she can do 8th grade math, let little Susie do 8th grade math.
Sure.
And these schools are getting some very intensive help. They actually had 21 other schools that wanted to participate in this. So now they've set up what they call the Gemini Project, which gives them these tools to also use, but not as intensive assistance from the state school board. And now we've got another set of schools that also want to participate. So now we have the Gemini 2 project, which is looking at how do we do schools different. Just sitting in a class and you're in 6th grade and all you get is 6th grade work is not working for students.
Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Simple, sold.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1, broadcasting from the heart of the country, literally in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker KQAM and KGPT channel 2610 on the InfoWars Network, along with the entire Mid-America Network. We appreciate you all hanging out with us, no matter where you may be across the Mid-America region. We are advancing conservatism on a daily basis, unlike anybody else. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. So that was an interview we did with State Representative Brenda Landwehr on Tuesday. Appreciate her joining the program, talking about the big investigation happening at the state level right now. No new news over the last couple of days. I've been kind of monitoring, and there's nothing new. The Attorney General, Derek Schmidt, has asked for an audit of K-12 funding. There is the ongoing investigation to see where else there may be some shenanigans spending happening in education. But isn't it ironic, and we mentioned this a couple of days ago, but isn't it ironic that the Democrats are the ones kind of dismissing this, blowing it off, saying, well, it's not illegal, it shouldn't be illegal, he's a great guy, he's been there for years, his public service should be enough to say, whatever, and if it is a problem with what he did, then we'll change constitutional law, and then it won't be a problem. Shocker there. Then we'll just make it okay, because no one actually breaks the law, they just do whatever they want to do. No one actually does anything bad. If they do, then we'll just change the rules so it's not bad, because don't you try and impose your laws and morals and ethics on me. How dare you? And it's ironic that that's the argument they make while they're asking for more money. They've illegally been giving the school districts, more money than what was on the books, more money than what was supposed to be given to the districts, and then they turn around and say, oh, look at this, now we actually have more money going in there, but it doesn't matter, we still need more money. Then they turn it around and try and blame the Republicans. Republicans, how dare you? You're using this as a scapegoat. You're trying to use this to get out of actually having to fund more on education. How dare you? How rude. Really? Maybe if we actually focus on the educational part where, I don't know, we learn something, we might be productive. Maybe if we actually focused on the quality of public education instead of actually worrying about how much money the district gets so the district can actually increase the bureaucratic state and the administrators every single day, then maybe we would actually have proper graduation rates. When we're number 8 from the bottom of the list in the entire country as a state of Kansas. Number 8, which means we're number 42 in the country right now, 8 from the bottom. We're number 42 in the country for actually being ACT or SAT prepared for our high school students, junior and senior students. Number 42 in the country. And we're dumping in 52, 53% of our state budget into education, hoping that it's going to actually fix it. Come on. People are starting to wake up to this. We had the Common Core education that said that they are essentially dead with Common Core at the federal level. That's coming from Betsy DeVos herself just a few weeks ago. Then we see legislation coming out of Missouri, just our next door neighbors, and said, oh, guess what? State lawmaker wants every college student in the state to pass a citizenship test because we don't do civics anymore. We don't teach civics. We don't teach government. We don't teach the separation of powers. We don't teach what it's supposed to look like in our government system to understand that we do not have a democracy, but we actually have a constitutional republic. So, state lawmaker in Missouri, hey, you know what? If we're going to do this, maybe in high school, maybe in college, but we need to have a citizenship test for everybody as if they were getting naturalized. So that way we understand basic civics. We start getting rid of Common Core, then we can have basic math. We start getting rid of Common Core, then we can have basic English, reading and writing, which apparently I don't do very well. Maybe we get back to the basics. Brenda had talked about the programs that we're starting here in the state, saying if you're advanced and you may be a certain age, but you're advanced and you're learning a 6th grade math and you're only a 4th grader, then let's put you in a 6th grade math class. Why do we need to hold you back? You know why? Because progressives hate that. They absolutely detest the fact that someone may be more advanced than somebody else because no. We need to hold you back a little bit and wait for everybody to move forward together, or else it's going to be unfair because then it's going to look like we're providing more special treatment to you as opposed to somebody else. It doesn't matter about the quality of where they're at and how fast or slow that they may learn. But no, we can't be doing that. But now we're starting to, go back to the basics. Unlike what government education actually given us before. That remember back in the day, the Little House on the Prairie days, K through 12 used to be in one classroom, and you would learn at the level that you're at, regardless of what age you were. Some were smarter, some were a little bit slower. Not saying that they were dumb, they just took a little bit more for the light to click on. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's teach people at the level that they're supposed to be at. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Lots to get to today. You're not going to miss a bit of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
That's the priorities our government has set. We just talked about the state budget and where the money's going and how much taxes they want to increase on us. Now we're looking at the federal level and looking at a federal budget reform on what we can do to get our budget under control. And instead of worrying about where the money's going and what our tax rate's going to look like and what our spending's going to look like, we're too concerned with giving amnesty to illegal aliens. Notice the priority of the progressives.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, man, things just happen way too quickly around here. I tell you what, welcome back into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, along with KGPT TV, channel 2610, along with Facebook Live, along with the TuneIn app and online streaming, wherever you may be listening. Welcome aboard. Happy Thursday morning. It's the pre-Friday celebration, and it's funny. I love, first off, having the connection. I do the ability to be able to reach out to legislators when we need to get the information out to you. That's the whole purpose of this show. That's what we do. We try and get the info, and then we relay it onto you. Because why? You're the voter. You're the constituent. You're the one that elects these individuals, and you're the one that holds them accountable, and you're the one that can potentially either call or email or Facebook or knock on their door when you're upset with something going on and concerned. I was looking over the I was on the website over the break just looking over some of the legislation that's going through the House and the Senate at the state level, see if anything pops up, if anything's big. And there's an issue that just popped up that I, for the life of me, thought would not come up during a midterm election year. If you remember, I'd like to remind everybody that we have a Republican majority in both chambers for our state legislature. In the state of Kansas, our House and our Senate are both predominantly very, very red and very Republican. Not conservative necessarily, but Republican. And I saw a bill that intrigued me at first, that just popped up. And I'll get more details. We'll get somebody on here soon to talk about the details of this bill. But it just was proposed last night. So I reached out to a couple individuals and got it confirmed from both ends that they're very concerned about this bill, which means you should be very concerned about this bill. And I'm not going to give away my intel or give away my source, but I will say that this bill is being proposed on the floor in the House today, and it sounds very good, but it's actually a very dangerous bill. And it is statewide national reciprocity. Meaning that we can't, for the guns and for Second Amendment, meaning that we will accept and we will abide by other states' gun rights, constitutional carry, gun permits, concealed carry, whatever it is. If someone's traveling from another state and coming to the state of Kansas and want to carry their firearm, they have the right, and we will abide by and respect those other states' laws concerning concealed carry or open carry or whatever they end up having in that state, and their laws. We will respect that in the state of Kansas when they come to travel here. That's the good part. The bad part is that the way it's worded, and I've got confirmed this by an individual already, is that it is so open-ended that they are going after to repeal carry on campus this year. That they were going to try and go after the carrying in the hospitals. That they're going to try and go after concealed carry in the state of Kansas. Right now, if you remember, we have constitutional carry in the state, that you can have a gun, not necessarily with a permit, that you can just carry a gun. It's constitutional carry. You have the constitutional right to carry a firearm. End of story. That's our current law in the state of Kansas right now. This open-ended national reciprocity is a false flag in order for them to say, look, this reciprocity in the state of Kansas will accept other people's rights and their laws that they have from their states when they come to travel here, trying to entice people to come here. But it is such an open-ended bill by the shenanigans that they like to pull that it could potentially repeal campus carry, that it could potentially repeal our constitutional carry in the state of Kansas, and that's the shenanigans. Now, this is very clever for them because, as you know, being in a midterm election year, that I have talked to, how many have we talked to? 3, 4, 5, 6 different legislators so far and asked them about the guns. And they said, yeah, you know what? It's a concern-ish. We'll keep it on our radar, but it's not going to be a huge issue this year because Republicans don't want to damage their rating with the NRA going into a midterm election as a Republican. Going back to you, the constituent, you, the voter, and saying, please vote for me again. And look, I have an A+ rating with the NRA, and we're very pro-Second Amendment, and we're going to be protecting your gun rights, and we're going to be supporting this movement. And the fact that now they're trying to pull this with the mirage of saying, look, we have reciprocity. We're going to respect other people's gun laws from their states when they come here. But at the same time, now we get to begin to repeal and carry campus. It's time for us to call our legislators now. It sounds like it was just introduced last night, late on the floor, saying that they're going to actually have it on the floor this morning at 11 a.m., which means we need to make our phone calls now. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Call your legislators today. Email them, and preferably before 11 o'clock today, because this bill is going to be on the floor of the House today. We'll get somebody hopefully on the show later on to discuss a little bit more in detail what this bill actually looks like. 316-721-8255. Shoot me a message all over social media if you'd like to. The Facebook Live is rolling right now if you want to shoot a message there as well. You can email me, andy@kqamradio.com, and really just send me a message or reach out to me however you'd like to do so, because we really appreciate that. Yesterday, we had a heck of a show with so many calls discussing the State of the Union, and we love that very much. So if you want to keep that rolling, you can definitely do so. As you know, yesterday, Governor Sam Brownback officially relieved himself of his duties of governorship, and now we have Governor Jeff Coyler. And congratulations to him on the position. I am excited to see what he has in store for the state of Kansas. I do have to say something, though. At the luncheon yesterday that Governor Brownback and Jeff Coyler were at, Governor Brownback spoke a little bit for his farewell to many of the legislators, and this is typical Brownback. And I don't know why he gets hated on so much, other than the fact that he's just too nice. He's too nice to be in politics, which is why I think an ambassadorship where he's not necessarily debating anybody every day or fighting the media every day, as opposed to the governor, is going to fit him much more appropriately than him being actual governor. Here's what his comments were last night. I'd like to clear the air and have a clean slate when I leave somewhere if possible. I was just thanking them and saying that if I offended anybody, I never meant to do so. There's honest differences of opinion, and if I did offend anybody, then I apologize. That was his comments yesterday during his luncheon and giving his farewell to the governorship and reintroducing Governor Jeff Coyler into the position. That's typical Brownback. Now, I don't think he needed to do that. I really don't think that he needed to apologize to anybody. He has not offended anybody by saying that here's my opinions and here's my beliefs, here's my philosophy, here's my legislation, and I'm going to advocate for it. That does not deserve an apology. Don't apologize for who you are. It's almost like the kid that gets bullied at school over and over and over. You get bullied, you get bullied, you get bullied, you get pushed around, you get kicked down, you get verbally abused, you get punished, you get hurt all the time. And finally, they stand up for themselves, and they whop the bully. And I'm going to teach my daughter this, that you never start the fight, but you sure as well will end it. And that's how it's going to be taught. And that's how I think many students and kids should learn to face bullies. You get bullied, you stand up, you punch them in the nose, break their nose, and then they'll never do it again because they'll respect you after that. But that's what Governor Brownback's done. And here's the thing, he's never stood up and swung back. He's never done it. The media criticizes him over and over and over. The messages, we've read them on the air. When he asked for the day of prayer and fasting on Tuesday, not because he's almighty and he wants everybody to worry about him. The fact that he's praying that he can do a good job of his new position as fighting for religious liberties for individuals. That's all he wanted. That's all he wanted to do. Pray for me as I make this good job so that way I can fight for people all around the world in order for them to have the right to believe what they want to believe without having their heads chopped off, without being buried in the sand and stoned to death, without being thrown off 5-story buildings strapped to a chair that you see in many places around the world because that you say you're Christian or that you say you're Jewish or that you say you're Muslim or that you say you're Buddhist or whatever religion that you want to believe in, or if you say I don't like religion and I don't want to do anything with it. Whatever it is, all the power to you. You have the right to believe that way without your government, without some type of genocidal maniac, without some type of mafia, without some type of whatever coming after you and killing you because of that. That's all he asked for. A day of prayer and fasting just to wish him well for that new position. And the media and the Democrats and the progressives got sick and disgusting and vile, and I've never seen so much hatred spewing out of someone in my entire life because of that. And then you heard the statewide movement, how they wanted to have a beer and pizza party in order to celebrate as opposed to pray for him for actually doing it. That's what we're... And then what does he do? He turns around and says, if I've offended anybody, I'm sorry. I like to leave without having that dark cloud over my head that way and leave it on bad taste. And that's a good way to do it. Politics is a very small industry, and you know everybody. Obviously, the Democrats can't have anybody more than a Clinton or a Kennedy actually being the face of their party. That's what we're up against. I was told that in media when you go into radio. Don't ever leave a company with on bad terms because media and radio especially such a small community that you travel around the country going to different jobs. You're going to run into somebody, and the person that you may have got upset with before you let go with a bad taste in your mouth before may be your boss in the next position. Don't ever burn a bridge in media and in radio. That's what I was taught, and I don't do that anyways because I'm just a nice guy. But that's what Brownback's trying to do right there. If I've offended anybody, I apologize. There's a difference in opinions. There's a difference in ideas and philosophies, and that's all that we had. There's nothing to that. Let's let it lay. Let's be friends, and then let's move on. And you know what the response was from that last night? You really want to know what the response was? Anthony Hensley from the Senate side. I don't know if I'd call it mending fences. I think it was important for his ego. What a jerk. Let me just say it straight up. Anthony Hensley, you're a jerk. I'd serve with 8 different governors, according to Hensley. He by far was way the worst. Well, I don't really care. But the fact that he's trying to monetize, the fact that he's so deeply religious that he, you know what, you can attack me, you can beat me, you can slander me, you can whatever. If I've offended you, I apologize. It's nothing more than politics. And Anthony Hanzo, it's just his ego. Whatever. Get out of here, idiot. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine.
Good.
Two issues that you've touched on.
Sure.
I really think that we need to have an audit. I think every taxpayer, hardworking USA citizen, a taxpayer has the right to know exactly where our tax dollars are going.
Every penny of them.
I think that we every penny.
Every penny.
Like when I was raised, they say watch your pennies and keep your pennies, and your dollars will take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
So we need to have an audit of every place that our tax dollars go. In our school, I've been suspicious about the school, the way our money's been spent in our school system for a long time. I've raised 3 kids, and that just seems like something fishy's going on, because we spend lots of millions and millions of dollars on education, and what do we get for our
sure.
investment?
When you spend 53% of the entire state budget, which is multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and then we turn around and we also have federal aid, and then we also have the Supreme Court demanding more money, and we see the record number of cash reserves that the districts are sitting there holding on to, and then we still see that only that we're number 42 in the entire country for actual juniors and seniors prepared for the SAT and ACTs. That means that we're still not doing something right, and no matter how much money we throw at it, it's not going to fix the problem.
Exactly, and I think these judges are usurping or overstepping their constitutional authorities.
Mm-hmm.
Who are they to say when our legislators? They're the ones. The legislators make the laws. Who are they to say that? Oh, well, you made a law, but that's unconstitutional. No. It's constitutional for the legislators to make laws.
Exactly.
And the judges are supposed to enforce those laws, not say, oh, you can't do that,
It's sad. I think that our Supreme Court judges, along with many of our legislators, need a refresher on basic civics with the separation of powers. The executive branch enforces laws, the legislation creates laws, and the Supreme Court, all it does is say whether it's constitutional or not. But that's it. They don't judge. They don't impose their will. They don't push the legislature. They don't do anything other than sitting back and just interpret the law. That's it.
Right. And this is what I think that Donald Trump, our President Trump, needs to do, is demand, make an executive order to have an itemized audit of where our tax dollars go there in Washington. I think
Boy, wouldn't that be nice?
To,
could you imagine if they did a full-on audit for every single penny spent at the federal level, if between special interests, between every single porculus bill, between every single, how many millions of dollars did they say of taxpayer money that many of these congressmen and women have actually spent on paying off individuals for sexual harassment or their slush funds? Or just imagine what we could find out if we did a full-on deep audit for every single individual and agency in the federal government.
An itemized audit where the taxpayers know exactly where every penny has gone. And for example, this money to repair roads and stuff like that, the government collects how much in taxes from our gas expenditures? We spend a lot in gas, and a lot of that goes to the government.
Sure. And
that those taxes are supposed to be spent on keeping the roads repaired and bridges and things like that. So what's happened to all that? Why are we having to raise more money,
It's a great point.
To do this?
It's a great, every day they just want more and more money every single day. Helen, I love it. I appreciate the call very much. We got to take a break here, but you make some really great points. Let's do a full-on audit across the board. I'm willing to invest state money, and that is one thing I'm willing to invest money in, is saying, you know what, let's pay a third party to come in, do a full-on, across-the-board, itemized audit and see exactly where our money's going, what's going to happen, where we could save, where we can consolidate, where we can cut, where we can trim, and then where we need to apply money appropriately. And I wonder how many more shenanigans like this investigation we're seeing right now for K through 12 education, with the money going to the districts against state law that the Democrats are just dismissing and blowing off. I wonder how much more of that type of shenanigans, especially with the education funds, that we would find if we did some type of itemized deep audit like that. Let's take a break and we'll get your thoughts and calls as well. When we come back, I want to get your thoughts on what do you think a Governor Jeff Coyler's administration is going to look like, at least for the next few months until the general election. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Baby. Let's get her done. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM along with KGPT TV channel 2610. By the way, with how exciting and ramped up this show is, it's not just a morning show. They do replay it on KGPT channel 2610 in the evenings from 6 to 9 at night as well. You can go home, have dinner, and turn it back on and be able to listen to us all over again with all the information you need to know this stuff. Between the K-12 investigation happening at the state level, between the NRA, well, not the NRA bill, I don't know who's sponsoring this bill, but you need to call your legislator now about it, because it's kind of concerning the fact that now they're talking about reciprocity in the state of Kansas, which is a good thing, but at the same time allowing the open doors when it comes to repealing carry on campus, when it comes to repealing constitutional carry, when it comes to carrying in certain venues. It is an open door, and the way they did that was to try and say, look, reciprocity. You guys like reciprocity. We can actually abide by and respect other states' laws on concealed carry or constitutional carry or whatever other states may have, but at the same time, closing our doors here for our right to carry within the state of Kansas for our own state laws. So call your legislator. We're going to try and get somebody on before the end of the show today to give us some details on that. I do want to tell you it is Thursday, which means Friday's right around the corner, and this entire month, if you're not aware, is FFA Appreciation Month. Yeah! And in the 6:30 hour, 6:35 every Friday, our very own Rick Everett's going to be talking with a chapter somewhere in the state of Kansas, an FFA chapter, talking about what they do, who's involved, what they're working on, and all the great stuff that the FFA has for our communities. And we do want to thank our sponsors for that one: Circle H, Center Pivot Repair, Comark Energy Co-op, the El Dorado Livestock Auction, Kansas Wheat Commission, and, of course, the Mid-America Ag Network and KQAM Radio. It's FFA Appreciation Month. Every Friday at 6:30 right here on The Voice of Reason, we'll air those, talking about the different chapters of FFA throughout the state of Kansas. Back after this.
Through the fake news on a daily basis.
I hope now you boys see that this is totally serial.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, starting off your Thursday the right way. I don't know any other way you can start it off. I mean, I don't know what else you could possibly ask for to be able to start or end your day. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM, along with KGPT TV, channel 2610, along with the Facebook Live, and everywhere else that you want to listen or check out the show. You're more than welcome to do so, and we love it and appreciate it very, very much. 316-721-8255. The question I have for you is, what do you expect to see, and or what do you want to see with a Governor Jeff Coyler administration over the next few months? Now, as you know, he will be running for governor at the end of this year as well. He is running. We'll get him on the show to talk about that campaign, but he's been working on the transition, and they've gotten criticism because that's just what Democrats in the mainstream media does, is they criticize the transition. They criticize the stalling of Brownback's nomination. They criticize the voting of Brownback's nomination. They criticize the transition process with them trying to juggle both administrations of doing two things. They criticize the fact that he wore a brown suit yesterday. They criticize the fact that he has, shoes tied at the end of the day. I mean, that's just what they do. They just criticize. They hate and they criticize. And that criticism leads to just puking of anger and detest and frustration. So the question is, now that we've officially seen the transition, they can no longer complain about the fact that, oh, we don't know what office to call to actually ask for issues. We don't know whether to call Governor Brownback or whether to call Lieutenant Governor Coyler. Now you can say, we are calling Governor Jeff Coyler's office. And he did speak after Governor Brownback said, I apologize if I've offended anybody over my years. It's been politics, nothing personal. It's just difference in ideas. And then, of course, the Democrats are like, oh, well, that feeds his ego and yada, yada, yada. I don't care. But Governor Jeff Coyler now has spoken. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with Kansans. I'm really excited. First off, you'll see a change in tone. It really reflects how I view the world. I want Kansans to know they'll have a trusted doctor who will listen to them. I'm not going to look at it too deeply, but that almost comes across as, oh, there's going to be a change of tone and I'm actually going to listen to you because Governor Brownback did not listen to you. Because that's not the case, and I hope that's not what he intended, but I don't want to look too deeply into that. But a change of tone, what does that mean? What does it mean to have a change of tone? Well, to change the tone, we have to understand what the tone is right now from Governor Brownback. And I'm not talking about policy-wise. I'm talking about the tone of his character and how he's presented himself as governor. So even if you disagree with the governorship and his legislation that he's had or the ideas that he's promoted, just the character of Governor Brownback and his tone as governor, in which case was very loving, was very comforting, was very happy, was very go-lucky, was very, as you know, not very brass or not very going after his enemies or opponents. The one criticism that I had of Governor Brownback was the fact that he did not defend his positions. He did not go on the offense. He did not go on the attack when the mainstream media criticized him, when Democrats criticized him. He didn't do it. So if that's the change of tone, then maybe we're going to be a little more bold. And that would be nice. Maybe we'll be a little bit more bold. This is what we're going to do. This is what I want to see. This is what I support. This is what I'm not going to support. And if you do anything that gets to my desk that's not going to be within those parameters, I'm going to veto it. And be very stern and bold in that way. And Governor Brownback did that to some degree. But will Governor Jeff Coyler do that? Will he stand bold and firm and say, yeah, no, I'm not going to support that, and don't you dare put it on my desk, and if you do, then you better have the numbers to override my veto, because I'm not going to support it. And that's what I want to see. And I think that actually if he's going to run for governor at the end of this year, then he needs to take a stand like that, because we need to know exactly where he's going to be. We need to know his platform. We need to know his ideas. We need to know exactly where he's stern and where he's not going to be stern. And we want him to be bold. People want a leader. General people in the general public, for the most part, look for a leader. And that's what they always want. They don't want someone who's wishy-washy, who's back and forth. And that's why Democrats have such a hard time at the national level, because they support someone like Hillary Clinton or the Kennedys, to where they change positions every few years, and then they find a way to defend them and then dismiss it when we actually call them out on their hypocrisy and their back and forth. They don't like that, because they want a leader to stand bold on an issue. When Hillary Clinton comes up and says, #MeToo, and we're going to end it, brah, then you support that as a Democrat, because you're like, yeah, that sounds really good, and she sounds like a leader. When you say, yeah, I'd really like to see this, but just get something to me and we'll see where it goes. Which, nothing against Governor Jeff Coyler so far, but that's kind of the mentality that we've had as lieutenant governor, is just, well, I want to do this, but we'll see where it goes. And I don't want to see that. And I hope that's not the case. And it's not a criticism in any way, shape, or form. I am very, very excited about to see what Governor Jeff Coyler's administration will look like. He is in at really a perfect time to set himself apart from anybody else right now with this legislative session, with what they try to put on his desk, with what they try to do with the legislature, with what kind of legislation they try and pass, whether it is tax increases, whether it is education spending increases, whether it is the expansion of Medicaid. Right now is the perfect time for Governor Jeff Coyler to stand up and make a bold statement and take a side one way or another and say, this is what I'm going to stand for, this is what my governorship will look like, and this is what we're going to do. And if he does that, I guarantee you that his approval ratings and his polling numbers will go up for the governorship election this fall, because people want a bold, strong leader. If you listen to different dialogue of different Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals, and you listen to the dialogue of different ideas, I may disagree vehemently with a Bernie Sanders individual. I may disagree vehemently. I may disagree with every fiber of my being, not hate them or detest them the way that progressives like to do to Republicans, calling them Nazis and racists and bigots and everything of that sort. It's not a personal thing. It is a political thing, and I will detest their ideas with every fiber of my being. But if they stick to it, and if they defend it, not just like name call and dismiss, but if they actually defend it and they are substantial in their arguments and they are intelligent in their arguments and they've studied it and they learned it, and that's the conclusion that they came to, and I've tried every angle to try and argue with them intelligently. Not just the name calling and not just the dismissal and not just the bigot or whatever. I'm not that crap, but actually an in-depth intellectual discussion. If by the end of it they have stuck to their position and they have the facts and they have the studies and they have the history to back up their position and their opinion of then I will respect them. I don't agree with them, but I will respect them. I've had many individuals come to me and say, you know what, I disagree with you beyond belief, but you're a great debater, you know your stuff, and I respect you for that. And they have more respect for you. And then you begin to follow that individual because they know how to advance that agenda. They know how to advance that idea. They know how to create that branding, like we talked about in the first hour. The branding and the PR not just works for businesses, but it also works for politics. Setting that brand of a way that no matter what kind of attack you come after me with, I will be able to counter it and move forward in a positive way with it. Governor Jeff Coyler or any of the governor's candidates right now need to have that brand, and many of them have done so very well. Some of them are still trying to form that brand, but they need to have that brand, they need to have that identity, and they need to have a bold stance on something to where they're not wavering. They're not saying, well, let's just wait and see. Not just, well, I'd like a little bit of both to try and get along. As soon as, at least in my opinion, as soon as I hear somebody say, I want to pull from both sides and I want to be able to blend them together and make everybody happy in a singing kumbaya harmony, and I want to try and get both sides to come together and find a happy medium together. To me, that means that you're just too scared to have anybody dislike you. To me, that means that you're not actually standing on any type of platform or issue. All you're doing is just trying to play nice with everybody, which means that everybody's going to dislike you, because in politics especially, but even in the real world normally, you're never going to get everybody to like you. I tried that as a kid and it never worked. As you know me, I'm a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I can kind of get along with anybody. In high school, I hung out with the jocks, I hung out with the preps, I hung out with the stoners, I hung out with the lamos, I hung out with everybody. I didn't care. I liked everybody. I got along with them. I was kind of the floater one like that. And then once I got into politics, people started to really get angry at me. And it would hurt me at first. And then I realized, you know what? They're blaming the ideology. They don't like what I'm standing on. I don't really care. And you toughen up your skin a little bit. Make the bold statement, be strong, take a stand, and let's get something done. That's what we have to be about. 721-825-5721 Talk. What do you think a Governor Jeff Coyler's administration is going to look like for this session? I'd love to hear from you, at least going into the election next year. I do have big news, and we do have breaking news right now. Breaking news of the day, and we've actually interviewed him right here on the show, but high school candidate Ethan Randallis, one of the first governor's candidates that we've interviewed, the high school student, who was if you remember, kind of the Ron Paul conservative libertarian, has now officially left, not the race, but officially left the Republican Party to run for governor as a libertarian. It's our intent, and this is the press release that came out yesterday, it's our intent as a campaign to run under the Libertarian Party rather than to continue to deal with the childishness that is the Republican Party in the state. The state Republican Party has continually acted in a manner that would most closely fit an elementary school student. Not only have they shut the campaign out of any sort of debate due to an arbitrary agreement rather than merit of ideas, but also continually go back on its own platform, which states our government should be smaller, smarter, and more efficient. By switching party affiliation, we as a campaign can continue to pursue our vision of what a free Kansas is and should be. A Kansas that allows its citizens to put into their body what they please. I'm assuming that that's about the marijuana issue. That's why we're switching to the libertarians, because unless you can smoke pot, then you're an abusive dictatorial government. the priorities of the young generation. A candidate does not act as though the government has a right to citizens' property. A candidate does not stand for bullying and overreaching government, and that will gladly stand up to the federal government through the 10th Amendment right. And finally, a candidate does not waste taxpayer money on personal projects, but rather allow taxpayers to keep their money and use it as they see fit, not as how the political elites see fit. It is upsetting to say the least that the state GOP leaders does not even follow its platform, and that they should shut out candidates strictly due to age. As this campaign sees it, the party is a fraud and should be exposed as such. We hope to assure that all voters understand just how much the state Republicans truly believe in the state, in the power of the state, rather than the power of its citizens. We are excited for this switch and will be working very hard for its voters in this great state. There it is. High school candidate Ethan Randall is switching from Republican to the Libertarian Party. And for what little shot you had as a Republican candidate, you have now lost all chance in any way, shape, or form running as a Libertarian. 7218255, the big news of the day there. The childishness of the high school student criticizing the childlike Republican Party. I have a pair of tickets. We have not done this in a couple of days, and I apologize. It's been too busy, but we're going to do 2 pair today. One of them right now, 7218255, Talk. We'll do caller number 2. I got a pair of Harlem Globetrotter tickets that's going to be coming up this weekend at Intrust Bank Arena, Saturday, February 3rd. It's at 7 p.m., and it's going to be a great event with the Harlem Globetrotters. They come into town every once in a while. I have a pair of tickets right now that I want to give to you. So let's go to caller number 2, 721-8255, Talk, and I'll get you a pair of tickets to the Harlem Globetrotters coming up this Saturday in just a couple of days. Take the family out, have a great time, have some family fun with the Harlem Globetrotters and KQAM. Let's take caller number 2 right now. This is the Voice of Reason.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. Coming up in hour number 3, we're going to have Raheel Raza. We've had her on the show before. She is with the Clarion Project at the federal level, a think tank in Washington, D.C. on Muslim reformation. And she's going to be talking to us about the impact that it's going to have with the U.S. Embassy going to Jerusalem and the state of Israel and our steadfast stance with Israel and the city of Jerusalem. So we'll talk with Raheel Raza coming up in hour number 3. Should be an interesting one. We love chatting with her. She's been on a couple of times before. Your thoughts and calls as well. A lot of things beginning to mull over in the state legislature. I want to remind you again to call your legislator today. 11 o'clock, that reciprocity bill goes to the floor in the House, and it sounds good, but it's not a good bill. From what I've heard, the little bit that I've been able to get out of some legislators by messaging and talking to throughout the show today during breaks, it is not a good bill. It is not one that is going to help us. The reciprocity part sounds good, but it opens up the door for the shenanigans to start repealing some of our gun rights here in the state of Kansas, including carry on campus, which I did not think they were going to touch this year. It's kind of catching us off, at least catching me off guard a little bit, because during a midterm election with the majority of Republicans running for re-election in the state, you would think that they would not want to damage their NRA rating by promoting the repeal of many gun rights in the state of Kansas. So we have an issue we need to address there. Plus, there is some good news, though. And I mentioned it earlier on in the show in the first hour, and I do want to get your thoughts as well on this. We'll talk about in depth a little bit later on in the show. But John Carmichael, Democrat from Wichita, along with State Representative John Whitmer, Republican, kind of a big progressive and a big conservative, binding together for a bipartisan bill when it comes to swatting calls, the fake calls to 911 saying that someone is in danger or having an issue when there's really not, that led to the death of the individual a few months ago. And now the bipartisan bill for the state of Kansas saying that if there is a swatting call that leads to a death, the person that made the call will be persecuted with murder and will be charged with murder in that case. And I totally 100% support that one. I think that that's exactly what we need. We mentioned that a few weeks ago or a couple of days ago, and I think that that's exactly what we have to do. Come down on the ones that actually start the shenanigans in the first place. along with, by the way, looking at what went wrong with the law enforcement. So we'll talk about that and more, get your thoughts on that. 721-8255-721-TALK. I do want to tell you about, by the way, can you believe we are less than 2 weeks away now? We have a week and a half-ish from Valentine's Day. Oh, yes. Valentine's Day, and it's the KQAM Ultimate Valentine's Day giveaway. We do this every single year. This year brought to you by Auto Tech. We appreciate those guys. But starting on Tuesday next week, and we're going to do this for a full-on week from Tuesday to Tuesday, we're going to be registering one person a day in order to give away the Ultimate Valentine's Day giveaway. I know the guys, you're probably thinking, I totally forgot. It's coming up here. I got to get the chocolates, got to get the flowers. What am I going to do? This is your chance. We're going to give it away on Valentine's Day, which is Wednesday this week, but we'll do in 2 weeks, but we're going to do the registration one person every day from Tuesday to Tuesday. You'll listen for the cue to call. We'll get you registered. And then on Valentine's Day, that Wednesday, the 14th, then you get a chance to win a gift from Autotech valued at over $75. That includes, by the way, a free oil change, windshield wiper blade replacements, a wash and a vacuum for the interior and exterior of your vehicle, along with a rose and some chocolates for your loved one. So there you have it. It's going to be a great gift. It's going to be a great way to enjoy and celebrate the Valentine's Day gift. It's the Ultimate Valentine's Day from KQAM and from Autotech. We really appreciate those guys partnering up with us on that giveaway. So stay tuned in. Start next week. We'll get you registered. We'll have a total of 7 registrants, and then on Wednesday, on Valentine's Day, we will give that gift away. Got some calls online. Hang tight. We'll get to you guys in hour number 3. Also, Raheel Raza with the Clarion Project going to be joining us. Plus, we'll get some more information on this reciprocity bill at the state level. This is your show. As always, getting you the information that what you need. It's time for you to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up here in a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
That's the priorities our government has set. We just talked about the state budget and where the money's going and how much taxes they want to increase on us. Now we're looking at the federal level and looking at a federal budget reform on what we can do to get our budget under control. And instead of worrying about where the money's going and what our tax rate's going to look like and what our spending's going to look like, we're too concerned with giving amnesty to illegal aliens. Notice the priority of the progressives.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, along with KGPT TV, channel 2610. With the video feed, welcome aboard. Good morning to you, wherever you may be, however you may be watching or listening. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. It's a pre-Friday celebration, and we are the fastest growing conservative show in the entire Mid-America region. I guess we are the voice of reason, but the Mid-America region because of you. And we appreciate that very much. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, social media is open all over the board on the Voice of Reason page, Facebook page. You can shoot me a message on the Facebook Live feed we have going as well. Andy at KQAMradio.com. If you want to email and any other way that you'd like to reach out, you are more than welcome to do so. We may have on a state legislator in about 10 minutes or so before the bottom of the hour, 10, 15 minutes or so, to talk about the gun bill that's being presented in the state legislature at 11 o'clock today that was introduced late last night. No turnaround, no idea. You, the general public, had no idea this was happening, but it was known to me, and it was let known to me by a source that it was presented late last night. It's going to be presented on the House floor at 11 o'clock today, and it sounds nice with reciprocity as a state of Kansas being able to respect and abide by other state laws based on constitutional carry or concealed carry laws or whatever the other states have, coming to the state and us respecting them when they carry their firearms. That's great. But at the same time, opening up a bunch of doors the way that it's written to start repealing our constitutional carry in the state of Kansas. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm really excited to get to our guest. We need to get to her. She is she's been on the show a few times. She is with the Clarion Project and a Muslim moving with the Muslim reformer movement. She is Raheel Raza on the line with us. Raheel, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to come for you to come on the show. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
It's been a little bit since we've talked, and I know this announcement was a few weeks ago, but this is really, really big, important news. And President Donald Trump mentioned this during the State of the Union speech just a couple of days ago. But we had to talk about the movement with the United States moving our embassy to Jerusalem, our steadfast support with Israel, and the impact this is going to have in the Middle East. Before we get into that aspect of it, talk about your thoughts on the history of this entire argument and debate between Palestine and Israel and Jerusalem, and what it all means for that region.
Well, the issue between the Palestinians and the Israelis has been something that has been ongoing for a long time. As you well know, this is nothing new. So the decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem does not impact on that situation in any way. It's just a long-awaited decision, and it's a bold decision, and it is a good decision in my perspective, because this is where it should be, and it will help the global community recognize Israel and its right to exist, which is the most important factor when one speaks about peace talks. How can you have peace talks with an entity you don't recognize? Now, the decision on how they're going to have the peace and when they're going to have the peace is entirely up to them, because it takes two parties to decide that they want peace. And if one party does not want the peace, then it doesn't happen. But, people keep on mixing the two issues and saying that this decision to have Jerusalem as the capital is going to, hamper the peace talks. Hello. I mean, the peace talks have been hampered for far long before that, and not necessarily from the Israeli side. This is something that could have been decided on many occasions when there were peace talks, but it was always the Palestinians who refused to negotiate.
Sure.
So this is a long-awaited decision from a theological perspective. As a Muslim, I know that it's important because my holy scripture, the Quran, tells me that this is the land of the Jewish people. And so, if people are speaking out against this from a faith perspective, then obviously there is ignorance and they are misguided. It is entirely political, and we know this.
Wait, so and I'm not familiar with the Quran in that sense. So you're saying that even in the Quran that it says that Jerusalem is the land of the Jewish people, and therefore the ones that are trying to fight this, the Palestinians who are trying to take over this and trying to take it away from them, they're going against their book.
In some ways, yes, if you happen to be a Muslim and you believe in your faith, Moses was way before Muhammad. So how is it that, we can suddenly lay claim to the land? Of course, you have to understand that is a piece of land that has been occupied by the Jews, by the Christians, by the Muslims, and at various times in the history of the world. But our holy scripture, the Quran, tells us that this is the land of the Israelites. It is the land of the Jews. And we have to accept that. We have to accept it politically and theologically. So, but of course, we know that there are many political agendas out there. I am accredited with the United Nations Human Rights Council. I go there 3 times a year. And I see the attitude of the OIC, which is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, a group of 57 Arab Muslim countries. And the only reason for their existence there is, and their presence there, is to slam Israel at every level. It doesn't matter what's happening in the world. Even our snowstorms are blamed on a Zionist conspiracy. So this bashing of Israel and the Jews has got to stop. And it is all over the world. It is anti-Semitism, as you know, is on the rise in Europe. It is on the rise in our universities through the BDS movement, through Israel Apartheid Week. And, this decision to establish the capital in Jerusalem is something that is just going to let the world wake up and step back and come to terms with it.
Sure. Well, and that's something that we need sometimes, kind of that tough love and that sense of it's going to happen whether you like it or not. And I'm glad you brought up the United Nations. I didn't realize that you were involved with the UN as well, which is fantastic. When we voted on that with the UN and they put it up to the vote, hundreds of countries voted against that because, as you mentioned, they've been Israel for a really, really long time in the United Nations. Do you think that's going to have a repercussion moving forward within the United Nations?
Well, I certainly hope that with pressure from the United States, it will have a repercussion. You now have Nikki Haley, who is really taking them to task, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And, the attitudes have to change. And this, again, as I said, is a decision that's going to wake everyone up. Now, from a faith perspective, and I'm traveling to Jerusalem this weekend, by the way, I have been there 11 times. And as a practicing observant Muslim, I can go to my places of worship in complete safety and security. So, Israel has actually protected the holy sites of all the three Abrahamic faiths,
Sure.
Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and has guaranteed access to them. It's one of the few places in the Middle East which is a shining democracy where Jews, Christians, and Muslims are able to pray in freedom, security, and peace. I have seen that. I have been there, and I have done that, and I would not want that to change for anything.
Absolutely. Why do you think it took so long? I know it's been political for the most part, but President Barack Obama said that he was a strong supporter of Israel, but he kind of backed off on many of the things that Israel was doing and embracing them as an ally. But he said he had talked about it. This has been, as you mentioned, in the works for a really, really long time. What's been that final blockade that's not allowed it to happen until all of a sudden, or maybe it is just President Donald Trump saying, I don't care what you say, we're going to do it whether you like it or not. And maybe that's just all it took.
Well, that's all it took, exactly. And as I said, it was a bold and decisive step. Others have talked about it. But, there is appeasement, they're wishy-washy. It's one thing to say it, but another thing to actually give a date and say, okay, this is going to happen in 2018. And, we can start planning and looking forward to it. And you know what? All the global communities will eventually have to get used to it because
Sure.
We've seen historically that when Donald Trump says something, he eventually does it.
Sure.
So, he doesn't have a polite way of saying it. We know that also. But, sometimes, as you say, you need tough love. He says it and he does it. And the world is just going to have to get used to it. And this is, the way things are and the way they should have been for a long time.
Absolutely. Do you think that when it officially does happen and it's said and done, is there going to be a response from Palestine? Do you think that they're going to try something militant-wise or physically to try and take it back over or to cause a scene over there?
Well, that's nothing new, is it?
Well, that's true. I guess that's nothing new. They've done it for a while.
They've done it for a while. Any opportunity to create unrest, who's to say? But if they're going to talk about world peace and if they're going to talk about coming to terms, then eventually they're going to have to settle down and accept it, just like the rest of the world.
If we have, let's say, worst case scenario, down the road, another administration for 12 years from now comes in and they are more so on less of the side of defending Israel for everything they do, is there an opportunity for them to pull out of that and reverse this and take the capital away and take the embassy away from that area and go back to square one?
I can't comment on that because first, I'm not an American. Secondly, I don't know how the policies work. But I would say it would be something very, very difficult to do. This is not a decision that you can reverse.
Sure.
So, and I think if somebody naively wanted to do that, it would be, not in their best interest to take such a decision because, this is for the betterment of the whole world and eventually for peace talks. And I'm an eternal optimist. I only look at the positive side of things, and I hope that this move will eventually bring peace to that area because it desperately needs to have a normal 9-to-5 day where people can just live their lives as ordinary citizens and where everyone can have human rights.
Boy, wouldn't that be nice. Raheel Raza with the Clarion Project, the Muslim Reformer Movement. Last question before we let you go, but you mentioned the United Nations. What's the next step with the UN? I know that we've threatened to potentially cut off funding to some of the other nations as the United States, cut off the other funding for them if they don't begin to support some of the things that we're doing or at least stop voting against us on some things. Is that an opportunity? Do you see maybe now a potential shift in the United Nations with their mentality to start backing off on some of their anti-Israeli resolutions that they've been passing for so long?
I should certainly hope so. The next session is in March at the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. So time will tell how the shift is taking place and if it's taking place. But definitely a change is in the air, and I'm very positive that it will implement itself.
I love it. A beacon of optimism, Raheel. I love it. I really appreciate you coming on the show with us. Raheel Raza with the Clarion Project. Thank you so much for coming on. We got to get you back on to talk more about this later.
Thank you. My pleasure.
A great honor to
have
have
a
you
great
on.
day.
You as well. Thank you so much there. That's Raheel Raza with the Clarion Project with the Muslim Reformer Movement, also involved with the United Nations, making it happen, baby, defending what is right in the world. Let's take a break. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM along with KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard wherever you may be. Thanks again to Raheel Raza with the Clarion Project talking about the U.S. Embassy moving to Jerusalem. How cool is that? Another check in the milestone for President Donald Trump, and a great thing that's been long coming, and finally just said, you know what? We're going to do it. And I don't care what anybody else has to say about it. That is the kind of leader. We talked about leadership just in the last hour, at the end of last hour. The kind of leader that just says, here's the stance I'm going to take. This is what I'm going to do. Guess what? We have a leader now. Not an apology leader that apologizes for everything that we do, but an actual leader, which is why he's doing so well right now. 721-8255, 721-TALK. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Eddie, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. I want to comment on the Democrat response.
Yeah, please do.
To, first of all, it was a guy named Joe Kennedy that gave it.
Yeah.
And
Joe Kennedy III, yes.
Yes. Now, Ted Kennedy, this is what happened. I know for an absolute fact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was at a gathering of his supporters. Okay. And this was kind of out in the country a little bit.
Sure.
And one of the young ladies in her 20s, he took her in his car, and they went out into the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he didn't even, he apparently didn't have enough money for a Motel 6. but anyway,
he forgot his wallet at his girlfriend's house. Yeah.
Anyway, after he did his little thing out in the country on a secluded road, on the way back, he went across a bridge that was wooden. And what happened was the car went off the side of the bridge and submerged upside down in the water.
He got out, she didn't.
Now, he got out, and she didn't.
Right.
And he did not even go back after her. What he did, he went back, and he called his parents, I think he called his lawyer. And it was like 9 hours after the accident, after he lawyered up, did he say that, oh, by the way,
this happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they didn't even do an autopsy on the girl because parents didn't want any more salacious stuff coming out. And and she was taken across, I don't know, it was, anyway.
Well, it was a terrible deal, which is why, again, and I wish that I would have thought of this myself, but I heard some other individuals mention this briefly throughout the day yesterday, and I thought it was absolutely hysterical, and it hit right home. The fact that, number one, the Democrats have to use a Kennedy to be the saving face of the Democrats again because they can't bring any new blood into the party to represent them as a young face, but then they not only have a Kennedy, but they have a Kennedy talking in front of a car with the hood up all mangled and looking up because it's supposed to be an auto body shop or something. So a wrecked car behind him talking about sexual harassment. You can't cut the irony with a butter knife because of all this. It's hysterical with the PR the Democrats apparently do not have in order to hype themselves up.
But the sad thing is a very young girl died, and this Kennedy, he didn't even have the dignity to try and flag down some help, get some help for the young lady.
Of course not.
He just left her in the water for about. Right.
Sure. He was in the wrong because I know he was involved with alcohol as well, right? He had a DUI.
Oh, and anyway, that's what happened, and we all know it, except possibly the young people. The young people don't know it.
Oh, well, and that's the thing. And that's why they're using the young face of another Kennedy, because, hey, the young generation, the millennials, they forgot all about that. They don't care that Bill Clinton did what he did when he was in office, because we were too young, and we didn't get to cover that. If you listen to the interview that the young lady had with Laura Ingraham on her Fox News TV show, The Ingraham Angle, they just, I was too young. I didn't cover that. I don't really care. And then with the Kennedys, they just don't care. They don't care. That was so far long ago, it doesn't even matter. So, therefore, why should we have to worry about it today? I appreciate the call very much, Eddie. Let's go back to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, it's Pam, Andy.
Pam, how are you today?
Well, I just had to share, since that last phone call, I had to share with you my favorite bumper sticker on my car.
Ooh, what's that?
It says, Ted Kennedy's car has killed more people than my gun.
There
and
it
I got that from my favorite Second Amendment Foundation back when this all happened.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen another one like that.
I was alive when it happened.
Sure. I've seen another one like that, too, that said Ted Kennedy's cars killed more people than Dick Cheney's gun. And yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's
mine's more personal.
See, exactly, it's personalized to you because you carry them. I know you carry them firearms, Pam. No one wants to come and mess with you. That's right.
Speaking of, you're going to go over that bill, did you say?
We're going to try to. We are going to try and go over that bill for the NRA, or for the gun bill, for the reciprocity. If we can get somebody on, we're trying to get them on. If not today, then for sure tomorrow. So stay tuned in for that. Pam, I appreciate it. Got to take a bottom of the hour break. Got some more calls on the line here, but yes, we will cover this gun bill. That's a huge thing, potentially being proposed in the House today at 11 o'clock.
When taxes go up, so do our tempers.
Oh my God, no!
Fighting for Kansans every day. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today. Can you believe it? It's almost done already. It just goes by way too quick. Your thoughts and calls, it's open lines to you for the last half hour of the show. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. What's it going to look like in the state of Kansas for the next few months? We have a legislative session that seems to be off on a bit of a rocky start. Just a little bit. Just a wee bit there. It's not going to be looking too good there for the legislature. We have right now an investigation with the K-12 funding when it comes to Dale Dennis, with the Department of Education giving additional funds to the transportation side of the districts illegally against the state of Kansas law. And the story, according to the Wichita Eagle, Kansas, according to Senate Majority Leader Jim Denning, says Kansas schools should pay back millions. They get to cover transportation costs. And the comments on there, Kansans are lucky to have Dale Dennis in the Department of Education. They don't care. Progressives don't care about anything. They will defend their own regardless of whether they're right or wrong, regardless of whether they've done something good or bad. They don't care. They'll defend them if they murder somebody. They have. Ted Kennedy, wash it off. Who cares? What do? We bring in his grandson or great-grandson or whatever part of the family with Joseph Kennedy III as we're emotional. Speak up. Be emotional. Let's respond to Donald Trump because he's a terrible person. Let's criticize Donald Trump's repealing of Obamacare and support Obamacare ourselves because, excuse me, it is God's passion for us to be able to take care of individuals. That's his movement right there. So let's hype up another Kennedy. And not only that, but let's throw the irony in there, and then let's say that, let's put him behind or in front of a banged up car and talk about sexual harassment. The irony! It's perfect. As a talk show host, my job can't get much easier than to find something like that. And I wish we would have saw it yesterday and called it before everybody else. And I heard that yesterday. I said, the light bulb came on. Oh my gosh. The reason I didn't was because I wasn't looking at the car behind him. I saw the car. I thought it was just like a muscle car. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Okay. And then I didn't pay attention to it. At that time, our cable was acting up, and I just heard bits and pieces of his thing. And I was like, this has nothing to do with Donald Trump's State of the Union, so I don't even know why I'm watching this. And it was absurd. So I didn't piece it together. I'm glad somebody did because it's ironic. The Democrats right now are panicking on what to do. Who's going to be the fresh new face? And it cannot be an 80-year-old Bernie Sanders that says, we're going to get socialized stuff. It's not going to be that. It can't be that. They're going to lose. That's why I think after the State of the Union last or a couple nights ago, the response to the State of the Union, what the moves the Democrats are trying to do, the midterm elections this year are going to be very favorable for Republicans. I don't care what the mainstream media says. These are the same ones that said Donald Trump had a 1%, 2% chance of winning on election morning, saying that they had no chance in the world, that we weren't going to have a chance. We weren't going to do anything. It was going to be Hillary Clinton all the way. Everybody knows Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's been in politics for a long, long time. Donald Trump is too crazy with his tweets. Donald Trump has a bad history. Donald Trump's been branded as a racist, and they tried to brand him. Oh, boy, did they. They still do. Did it work? No. And what are we seeing now? We're seeing record low unemployment rates. We're seeing the economy grow. We're seeing our embassy move to Jerusalem. We're seeing a repealing of Obamacare little by little. We're seeing patriotism for the first time. I played that clip, and if you want me to do it later on, I may save it for a later time, but I played that over and over, or I played it twice yesterday, the collage, the montage of the patriotism that President Donald Trump had mentioned in the State of the Union. One of the most patriotic things I've ever heard in my life. That's what we're doing now. Now we need to play this and actually move forward with it at the state level. We need to be proud Kansans. We need to be proud to be in the state of Kansas. We need to be proud of what we are. The fact that we do not go with the rest of the mold throughout the country. The fact that we stand our ground and that we actually set the tone for what's happening in our state, and then the other states look at what we're doing, not the other way around. The fact that we are one of the more reserved traditionalist states, and as everybody else goes off with these norms and with these fads and with these trends, the fact that we stay grounded and rooted because we are traditionalists. We are conservative. We may not be considered the most conservative state because many of our rhino establishment Republicans in the state and in our legislature that tries to do these things. But for the most part, the people, you and I, even maybe the ones that don't even turn out to vote, you and I, we are the traditionalists. We are the conservatives. And this is what we need to preserve in our state. And that's what we have to do. We have to use this momentum. We have to ride this momentum, ride this this mentality that President Trump's done at the federal level for here in the state of Kansas, because they're picking us off in a good way. I mean, President Trump is picking off our elected officials, our leaders, the good ones that we've had, and taking them to the federal level. Governor Sam Brownback, Chris Kobach, Mike Pompeo, Ajit Pai, who is with the FCC. They're putting them in leadership positions. They're doing things at the federal level. Now we need to have new ones to rise up from the ashes, because we are the party not of the old individuals like the Democrats are, the ones trying to use the same old name to come back to be the new face, but we are the party to where no matter what we do, we have new conservatives rise up. We are the face of conservatism right now. The young generation, I am proud to say that for whatever reason on this show, and maybe it's because the little bit edgier that I try to be on this show, the fact that this is probably has the most amount of young listeners than any other political talk show in the country. Probably because I'm young myself, and they can relate, and we can do this, and we understand it. I went through college. I went through the progressive movement there. I saw the adult coloring books and the therapy dogs and the hashtags and the individuals who are offended about everything. I saw it on campus. I get it. And let's learn to fight it. Let's not let them run our lives. Let's not let them take over the dialogue. Let's not let them say it's just confirmed and just by default and just fact of the matter that Donald Trump is a racist. Where did you come up with that? Well, he is. Okay, do you have any example of that? Well, he is. What? We can't just take you on your assumption of words and just say that that's fact. That's journalism right there. He's a racist. He's a bigot. Sam Brownback hates puppy dogs and children. Sam Brownback hates the education system. Sam Brownback ruined this state. What? Excuse me? Do you have any proof backing that up? Well, the economy's bad. The economy's been bad throughout the entire country. How does that fall on the shoulders of Sam Brownback? Well, he hates puppy dogs and children and he cut education funding. No, he didn't. It went up 2% every single year since 1997. Well, He's a meanie head. Yeah, okay. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. This is Ron.
Ron, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good.
Good.
The lady young lady they were talking about was Mary Jo Kopechne.
Yes, that's right. I forgot her name.
That's the one that Senator Ted Kennedy murdered.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Murdered by getting drunk, as you mentioned, Pam had mentioned before, taking her to a secluded area in the woods, sexually harassing, and then being a little drunk, driving off a bridge into the water, getting out and running away, and letting her die in the vehicle. And then before, even waiting to call anybody or make the announcement or let the police know, he lawyers up so that way he's protected. And the Democrats today just do not care, forgot all about it, and now we're hyping up a new Kennedy to be the new face of the Democrat Party.
Well, Joseph Kennedy III was a big druggie back when he was younger.
Of course he is. He's grown up with money and power. I mean, the person to talk about white privilege and supremacy, are you kidding me? Give me a break.
Well, he was something in when Hillary ran the State Department, was in charge of the State Department. He was the communications director or something in her State Department.
So he's been in politics for a while then.
Right. Hey, listen, tell us what that bill number is so we can call our representative today.
That's a good question. I will find that before the show ends, and I will give you the bill number. I don't have it up in front of me right now, but we will have on. I talked to a state representative, John Whitmer. He's going to be on the show tomorrow. He was going to try and come on at 8:30, but he had some meetings that came up right at 8:30. So he's going to be on the show to recap it tomorrow. But yes, I will give you the bill number to call your legislators in the House, because this is a House bill that came up and was presented late last night and is going to be on the floor today at 11 o'clock regarding your guns and reciprocity and the repealing of campus carry and constitutional carry potentially in the state of Kansas.
Thanks for all you do, Andy. I'm going to drop off.
Hey, very good, Ron. I appreciate it, my friend, very much. And yes, I will get you that bill number here momentarily, so stick with me before the end of the show. I'll do that during the break. Here, 721-8255-721-TALK. Let's take another phone call. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Paul.
Hey, good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hey, I was wondering, do you work for the Koch brothers? I can take your response on the air.
Do I work for the Koch brothers? No, I do not. Is that what you were looking for? You can, okay, I guess you can hang up. You know what? I think was that the same individual that called yesterday asking for Tom Hartman. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. We have a bit of a troller. Fun. Our first troller on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially made it big. Breaking news. Yeah, baby. Our very first show troller to make the comment and hang up. And I don't have his call screener, so I can't really screen it. I'm calling for Tom Hartman, which I don't even understand that one because Tom Hartman's a progressive. But then, do you work for the Koch brothers? No, Paul, I do not work for the Koch brothers, but I do appreciate the sentiment. No, I am my own individual that works for a small company called Steckline Communications here at KQAM Radio that we just talk about the state news and the state politics with my opinion on that. And apparently people enjoy it because I've been on for a little bit of time at least, and hopefully that continues to do so. But no, for a matter of fact, I do not receive any type of money or endorsement or have even spoken to a Koch brother in any way, shape, or form, nor have been involved with their company, not now or ever in my life prior. Hasn't happened, but I appreciate the sentiment very much. I mean, I guess if I'm at that level, then we can say something's doing well, right? I guess we can say that. Let's go back to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy.
Carl Peterjohn, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm fine. Got a question for you,
yeah,
as well as a couple comments.
Well, do you think that I'm part of the Koch brothers as well? Am I conspiratorial behind with the Koch brothers now?
Well, Andy, I don't even know. I don't think you've ever met a Koch brother.
I cannot say. I can say for sure that I've never met a Koch brother. I have never walked into a Koch brother industry building, nor have I received any type of financial aid from any member of a Koch brothers organization in any way, shape, or form. I can say that for certainty.
Well, you've got more certainty than the Democrats in Congress who are tied into George Soros and Tom Steyer's billionaire Looney Tunes bucks. But hey, the question I've got for you is a serious one. Governor Collier, taking office, We have term limits in Kansas.
Yes.
Is he limited to only getting elected once to governor now that he's serving out the rest of Governor Brownback's term, or can he run twice?
That's a really good question. I would assume, now this is just my assumption without knowledge of this particular law in Kansas, but I would assume that he would be able to get elected twice because he was not elected into that position and appointed on the last few months of the office. So I would assume that he could potentially run for two elections if he gets elected this time and then tries to run again. That would be my thought. Now, I don't know about Kansas law, but I believe he would be able to run twice, just I would guess, because of the fact that he's been appointed for this one late in the term as opposed to actually fulfilling a full-on term by himself.
Well, that was I had thoughts along the same line, but I'm not aware of anything in the Kansas Constitution that calls it out. Not aware with the statutes, and just wanted to raise it as a question.
Yeah,
would like to comment on your Senator Tony Hensley's hate comments concerning Governor Brownback, and of course he's hated every Republican who doesn't go along with Democrat spending and tax increases, and so former Governor Brownback ought to wear his criticism as a badge of honor, in my opinion. But,
absolutely.
But this is part of the hate speech from the left and the liberal Democrats. If you think Hensley's comments about Brownback were bad,
boy, oh boy.
There's a congresswoman from California, Maxine Waters, who called our president a racist, which I find despicable, and she should be. Of course, interestingly enough, she doesn't even live in the district she represents. But I'm getting a little bit in the weeds there. But
that's okay. I agree. And Carl, I want to take another phone call before we go to break here. But you're absolutely right. I don't like to name call a lot of people, but I tell you what, Anthony Hensley. With the comments that he made saying that when Sam Brownback came out yesterday at the dinner and said, you know what, if anybody has taken anything personally of what we've done politically here and to the reason you don't like me, if it's personal, then I apologize. I don't want to offend anybody because that's just the nice character that he has. And with Anthony Hensley coming back and saying, oh, you're just feeding your own ego, you're just a vile individual. He's a sick, violent, and I don't say that about people because I don't like the name calling. I'm more substance here on the show, but that's just a vile person to not even accept something like that and say, no, it's not personal, it's political. But again, he takes someone saying, please don't take anything personal because it's politics and let's just debate politically with ideas here. And then he turns around and just goes off on a name calling and says that he's feeding his ego. What a sick individual. Let's go back to the phone so we take a break here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
This is Dana.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, Andy, I want you to absolutely tell the truth on this.
Okay.
Everybody's watching you on television and listening to you on the radio.
Okay.
You have seen the Koch brothers on TV.
Okay. Well, you know what? There you go. I have seen them on TV. So you're right. I must apologize for my actions right now. I did not realize that what the definition was of what I was trying to explain here. So you're right. I have seen the Koch brothers on TV, and therefore I have lied when I said that I have never seen a Koch brother before. So you're right. I gotta respond now.
And I'm not a troll.
I love it, Dana. I appreciate that very much. I tell you what, I feel pretty proud right now. I feel kind of proud. We have a troll on the show. I don't know if you heard the Facebook live feed yesterday, but another one that was on and just had called me a dorky-looking jerk on the Facebook Live. Hey, you know what? We have you're doing something right when you have some haters in politics. So what do? I love it. I appreciate it. And even if so, you're still listening, and I applaud that and thank you very much for that. Now let's have a substantial discussion and dialogue on the air. Let's try and squeeze in one more phone call before we take a break, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hello?
Hello. How are you?
This is Helen calling back again.
Hi, Helen.
I'm calling back about the issue with Jerusalem.
Yes.
Well, this is probably scripturally, biblically, a benchmark that finally our nation
happened.
is recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I saw a story. I don't mean to cut you off. I saw a story just about a month or so ago, as soon as Donald Trump had announced that said he wanted to make Jerusalem the capital of Israel and make our embassy there. And there was a petition of close to 5,000 rabbis across the country saying that he is moving a prophecy forward in a positive way with what he's doing, and that he was there for that purpose to actually move prophecy to a whole nother direction and a whole nother light, and taking us to another step there, and that this is called for, and this was going to be the whole plan with Donald Trump. So I'm glad you might, because you're right. I think that there's a deeper message and something happening that we're not seeing.
Well, we are living in the final end time victory generation, which began in 1948 when Israel became a nation. And God says plainly, Jesus says, I foretold you all things, St. Mark 13:23. And he says, and he's foretold us that anybody that goes against Jerusalem shall end up, it's going to end up badly for them. In the book of Zechariah 14:12, and the book of Joel 3:1-8. And, people are fearing a nuclear holocaust. But what happens in Zechariah 14:12 is it says, and this shall be the plague, regarding the 7 last plagues in Revelations, wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away, and their holes and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it's not a nuclear holocaust. It's our Hebrews 12:29. For our God is a consuming fire.
Sure.
He's gonna take vengeance.
Well, there it is.
Against all of these people that have been fighting against Jerusalem and the children of Israel.
Well, that's a really good point, Helen. I appreciate it very much. That's a good point. We're seeing some interesting things here now. Whether you believe in it or not, I personally do. But if you don't believe in that, it's just interesting in the fact that this has been going on for a long time, and finally, some major things are beginning to happen under President Donald Trump in a positive way. So we got to appreciate that very much. So taking one more break, wrapping up the show today. We'll get your thoughts and calls when we come back. Also, I got another pair of tickets we'll try and give away before the end of the show for the Harlem Globetrotters. Let's go ahead and do that. Caller number 2, 721-8255, 721-TALK, and get you a pair of Harlem Globetrotter tickets at Intrust Bank Arena this Saturday at 7 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun. Take the family out. Have a good time. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Boy, the shows go by way too quick. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Wrapping up today. It's all said and done. We'll be back tomorrow on a Friday to wrap up the week for you. Appreciate you listening so much. We have way too much fun, and we couldn't do it without you. Everything that we talk about with the political issues, with the state issues, holding our elected officials accountable, that's what it's all about, and we can't do that without you. So thank you, and thank you. We got more stuff to give away tomorrow, goodies. More Harlem Globetrotter tickets, plus a concert coming up next Tuesday. I know a lot of my listeners are going to enjoy. Plus, our big Valentine's Day giveaway that we're going to start next week as well. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great day, everybody.